Hi everyone, my name is Lorna Laughlin and I work for Garden City Harvest Community Garden Program. Despite it being January and there being snow outside, it's a really fun time to be working for the Community Garden Program. Things are really ramping up in our work from home offices. We're accepting applications for new gardeners, so if you're hoping for a plot of your own, you can go to our website, gardencityharvest.org/communitygardens, and find an application for that. Those are due March 21st, so if you want to get involved, it's never too early to sign up. If you're coming back to your garden that you had last year, we're accepting RSVPs for that, so check your emails from me or Emily Kernswaffer, the Community Garden Manager, and be sure to get back to us by March 15th. Another exciting part of the season is we are setting our workshop series for the year. So that's always really fun, and our first workshop is coming up right around the corner on February 9th. So Emily Kernswaffer is going to be teaching a workshop on starting seeds indoors. She's great, she's a great teacher, and that's a really fun project. So if you're interested, you can find that at gardencityharvest.org/events. You'll see another upcoming workshop on planting like a pro that Emily's also teaching. So be sure to check those out and check back, because we'll be adding more workshops as time goes on as well. So always fun little nuggets of things there. The other exciting part about this season is that we're placing our seed orders. So the farmers, I think, placed their orders last month, but Emily and I placed our order for the Providence Garden this month, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how we do that. So I want to go over both how to order seeds and where we in Garden City Harvest love to order our seeds from, a few of the varieties we like, and some things to consider as a home or community gardener when placing your seed order. So jumping into that, the first big consideration when placing your seed order is that you might not actually want to order everything that you want to grow as seeds, and you probably don't want to order everything that you want to grow as seeds. The reason for that is that Montana has a really short growing season relative to a lot of places. A growing season is the time between your last frost of the spring and your first frost of the fall. So for Missoula area, that's May 23rd and around September 20th. So the time between those two frost dates is around like 120 or 130 days, which makes up our growing season. So when you combine that factor with a crop's days to maturity, and that just refers to how long it takes for the crop to get to the edible version. So whatever it is that you're going for. That sometimes a crop just doesn't, the 120 or 130 days isn't really enough time, or as much time as you might want in growing something outside. Either if anything has over 100 days of days to maturity, you're kind of, it reduces a lot of the wiggle room, because that growing season is an average, and they can sometimes be shorter or sometimes longer, but it does reduce the time if you've had poor germination in a first round, or anything like that. Or for something like tomatoes, those are a great example. Some of those tomatoes, or a lot of tomatoes, will mature and produce in our growing season, but they won't produce for as long as if you start them inside. So we start our tomatoes inside, and all across Garden City Harvest. And for my personal garden, I will buy tomatoes as starts, because if you start them inside 6 weeks or more ahead of your growing season, then they just have that much more time, and it can mean the difference between, or more of a head start on their way to maturity. So that can be the difference between getting your first tomato crop setting in September, and you have about 3 weeks until your first frosts are starting to hit and the clock is ticking on those tomatoes, or if you put your tomatoes in as starts, starting and having tomato harvest all throughout August. So sometimes I think it really just is more bang for your buck to buy things as starts or to start them yourself. And I think starting seeds inside it's a separate endeavor, and it's super fun, and it can be really rewarding, but it is separate, I think, from gardening, and you certainly don't have to start your own seeds to be a successful home gardener. And I actually don't for my home garden. I don't have the space, and that's just a consideration. If you do and you're interested and you want to dive in, then definitely sign up for that workshop with Emily's on February 9th, because she'll go over what you need to know and the materials. But if you don't want to dive into that and want to purchase things as starts, then that's totally fine too, and you just need to keep that in mind when you place your seed order, that you're only going to want to order the things that are going to go into your garden as seeds. As for places to buy starts, my number one recommendation is always the farmer's market. Farmers sell their extra starts, and they're a great resource, and they're perfect for this climate. But anyhow, so for ordering or for purchasing seeds, so my favorite way to purchase seeds is via a catalog, or I guess online, but via a catalog. So seed catalogs are these glossy magazines of seeds. So this one's from Johnny Selected Seeds, and you can see they're beautiful magazines that are filled with just information and varieties of crops from that company. So these catalogs are totally free. You just go to a company's website, a seed company's website, and request a catalog, and they mail them to you. So here's another one from High Mowing Seed Company. They mail them to you, and they have a lot of excellent information on the crops, and a great way to compare things right next to each other, both within the company and with these two. I can compare these two seed companies and the varieties that they have of radish really easily, make the best decision for my golden garden, and order from there. So every year across Garden City Harvest, we never do our whole order from one company. Even just for the Providence garden, it's usually from at least two places, usually a handful, to fill up our gardens. So our favorite places to order from are Johnny Selected Seeds, which is this one in the back here, and High Mowing Seed Company, but also to other great companies that I just don't have the catalog on me right now are Fedco Seeds. So these are based out of Maine. Here's what their seed packet looks like. They're great. They're just a really great company, great for our climate. Another fantastic company is Triple Divide Seeds. So I want to highlight these especially. They're based in Polson, Montana. So they're really local. They're none of the other companies that I just listed are based in Montana. Here's another example of that seed packet. And they're a cooperative, so they're just a really fantastic company that feels good to support, and when you buy from them, you know that you're buying something that's well adjusted to Montana's climate. Which kind of brings me to what to look for when you're picking a seed company to buy from. So the first one is climate considerations. So for Triple Divide, they're based in Polson, so that tells me that the varieties that they're growing are going to be well adjusted to short growing season and cold climates, which we have both. The other companies that I listed are all in the Northeast, and so they're in a similar climate as well, that they're, short growing season, cold climate, so those crops are going to do well that they're growing over there in Maine and etc. are going to do well over there than when we move them to Montana and plant them here. Whereas other places, you either have to pay more attention or they might not do as well. Like Baker Seed Company, I know is really, Baker's Creek, it's a really popular seed company, but they're based in Missouri. So Missouri is a lot warmer and has a lot longer climate than we do. So you're going to run into things that might have like 100 days to maturity, which again, then you're pushing up against that time frame where you're out of wiggle room and things might not do as well, or sometimes longer. So it's also just great to have cold hardy plants or plants that are going to really flourish. Other things that we like to think about when looking at a seed company is sort of the ethics of the company. So small companies are great to support. It feels good, especially in the era when more and more things are heading to like being bought up by monolithic companies, and whether or not the company produces certain pesticides or neonicotinoids, and whether or not that's something that you want to support. So Greg Price, our director at River Road Farm, he did a video on this where he goes in a little bit more depth and reads from some of these catalogs and highlights his favorite between some companies. So I'll link that in the blog below if you're watching this on our blog, or in social media you can follow it to the blog where I'll link that video, or you can find it by searching on our website. But anyhow, once again, those four companies that we really love: Triple Divide Seed Company, Fedco Seed Company, Johnny Selected Seeds, and High Mowing. and I'll list those out on this blog as well. But anyhow, those are the places that I like to order catalogs from, and then when you get the catalogs, they have a lot of information that's great. They'll tell you things that are excellent to know, like whether or not something is cold hardy, if it's disease or pest resistant, how to store it, oftentimes how to cook the crop. They have a lot of great information that's great, just fun to know in that realm, and a lot of these catalogs have pictures, so those can really help. A few things that are just helpful to know as you're looking through these are some abbreviations. So OP is going to be an abbreviation that you see a lot, and that stands for open pollinated. So OP seeds you can generally save, which is a good consideration if that's something you want to dabble into or are thinking about. And OP are generally open sourced as well, as far as the information. So you not only can save the seed, but it doesn't belong to anyone. It's not, the genetic information isn't privately owned. Whereas hybrid, or F1, which F1 just means hybrid, those seeds are owned by the company that's selling them. And you can't save them, both because of that ownership aspect and because a hybrid is not going to reproduce true to the parent. They're the parent of two seeds that then have different genetics in its own offspring. So that's just something to think about. There are a lot of benefits to growing hybrids, and yeah, they're grown for certain things, like different strong characteristics and all of that. So it's just something to think about. Hybrids are also more likely to be dropped from seed companies. It's part of like a hybrid churn where they just decide to stop producing them for any number of reasons. So you could lose out on some of your favorite varieties. That said, I don't think that's any reason to not dabble in hybrids. It's just something good to know and think about as you're diving through these catalogs. The last one is heirloom. So heirloom seeds are open pollinated seeds that are older. So heirloom's kind of a fuzzy definition, but the idea is that they've been handed down for generations. Sometimes the cutoff is 1951 when hybrid seeds were introduced, but those are just older varieties of open pollinated plants. So those are fun things to know as you look through those. Other things that these catalogs will tell you is whether or not the seed is organic, and all of that. So for me, these catalogs do come with a paper order form, but I like to order these, make a list of all of the varieties that I'm most interested in, and then generally order these online. So I'll go to the company, enter in the names of the crops that I've decided I'm most interested in, and place an order. And so on that, the ordering from these companies directly, sometimes the quantities can be overwhelming, and I think a good rule of thumb for home gardeners is to order the smallest amount. So generally 1 packet of seeds is going to get you through the season. And another consideration with that is that seeds aren't generally viable for more than like 2 or 3 years. So, you know, ordering, it's not like Costco with a lot of things, or like toilet paper buying in bulk. Those things can expire, so I think just ordering 1 packet's worth will get you through a season or two with those seeds, and especially as we're approaching what might be another run on seeds like we had last year. I think that's a good thing to keep in mind, is just taking as much as you need for the year ahead. On the expiration of seeds, something to think about is if you get seeds from any of the myriad of other sources that seeds come from, like you go into a nursery, or like locally the Good Food Store or Ace Hardware sells seeds. Some things to think about, which are not as applicable to those situations, but if you're like rifling through a free seed bin or your mom's extra seeds, seed packets are always going to say the year that they were packed for. So for example, this seed packet that I found for Fedco seeds was packed for 2014. So at this point in the 2021 season, I'm not going to use these seeds, and I don't think that it would be worth the time, just because these seeds are 7 years old now, and are probably not viable anymore. So always look for that on packets. The other thing is if packets will tell you generally like days to maturity and the name of the crop and some of the information that you need, but if you're ever looking for any more, just the name of the variety and the company, you can then usually search it online. So if you're looking for more of those things, like whether or not something is organic, or how to cook or store it, or just looking for more of that information that you can find in the catalog, all you have access to is the packet. You can generally do research there. I do want to make a small shout out to this company, Botanical Interests. So this isn't my favorite seed company. They're based in Colorado, so I think their growing season doesn't match up exactly with Montana, but a lot of things they grow are fine. And one thing that I really like about this company is they try to make seed packets as informative as possible. So these have all kinds of information on the front and on the back, especially they have when to sow inside or outside and which of these is recommended. So if you're a new gardener and you're unsure whether or not is something you need to buy from a starter, you can direct seed. These are really helpful. Like this lettuce, it says it's recommended to sow this outside. So that's really helpful. And actually, if you cut these packets open, they have more information, the same information essentially that you would find in a catalog. So just those things to keep in mind. Whether or not you want an open or hybrid plant, the days to maturity on a crop, where it's coming from, whether or not it's organic, all that information should be accessible to you in a catalog or on that company's website. So some of the varieties that we really love are Scarlet Nantes carrots. Oh, that's another thing as far as rule of thumb. So any short season crop you can plant as a seed, and any root crops you're always going to want to plant as a seed because they don't transplant well. So like beets and carrots. I really like Scarlet Nantes carrots. Detroit beets are great. Sugar snap peas, French breakfast radishes, Alyssa Craig onions. These are ones that you'd want as starts, but if you want to start your own starts, Alyssa Craig onions, Jimmy Nardello peppers. That's a tongue twister. Dragon tongue bush beans, and Moscovich tomatoes. So bush beans you can plant outside. The Moscovich tomatoes you'd want as a start, but those are just a few of our favorite varieties. And again, I'll list all of these in that blog. But when I'm placing my order for Providence or my home garden, the things that I'm going to grow as seeds, and a limited list of those: radishes, peas, beans, lettuces, cutting lettuces especially, spinach, all of your small greens, or your like spicy greens or arugulas, carrots and beets, sunflowers, and then sort of an interesting exception, or anything that you're planting from a bulb or a tuber. So that includes garlic or potatoes. You're not planting those from seed, but you don't want to buy those as starts. So for potatoes, I'd be ordering those if I haven't saved any garlic bulbs or potatoes to plant this spring, then I would order those from these companies as well, and not look for starts of those at the farmer's market. So yeah, I hope that was helpful. We have this video, it's going to be nested in a blog. We put out a blog every week. It's called The Real Dirt, and you can find that at our website as well, gardencityharvest.org/therealdirtblog. If you want to be put on an email alert to have us email you every time we put out a new blog, they're always on gardening topics or relevant educational aspects of gardening, then you can let us know in the comments and we can add you to that list, or just keep checking back. Again, don't forget to sign up for a garden if you want one. Let us know if you're coming back to your garden if you have one, and check out our workshops. So once again, Emily's Seeds Starting Indoors workshop is coming up on February 9th. The sign up for that can be found at gardencityharvest.org/events. And happy seed ordering, everyone. Thanks so much.